In this fast-paced world where everything moves quickly and we're on to the next thing before we finish what we're doing, we might stop a moment and reflect on our thoughts and how they echo through time. They are not a one-and-done phenomenon. They linger and hang around in our subconscious, waiting to surface again. Hi, I'm Beth Bonness, host of the Thought Echoes podcast. In this episode, I chat with Hrund Gunnsteinsdóttir, author of InnSæi, Heal, Revive, and Reset with the Icelandic art of intuition. Listen as we explore how to tune into our intuition, see the big picture, and navigate uncertainty. And it all starts with paying attention to what we pay attention to. I hope you enjoy this episode.
My name is Hrund Gunnsteinsdóttir. I am from Iceland. I'm an Icelandic author. I spent my time between Berlin and Reykjavik mostly. I'm the author of InnSæi, Heal, Revive, and Reset with the Icelandic art of intuition. I've been passionately curious as a researcher, practitioner, leader in different fields about intuition. And I explore it through the Icelandic lens of InnSæi, which is the Icelandic word for intuition. I give talks, I'm a coach, and I train people in aligning with their intuition and honing it through the lens of InnSæi. I'm honored to be with you, Beth.
Thank you. I'm so glad to finally get to talk to you in person. Intuition has been something I've been curious about, I think, all my life, even if I didn't know as a little girl that that's what it was called. But what I loved about reading in InnSæi was about the three elements or the three aspects of it. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So, after having explored, researched, and conversed with people from around the world, largely in English, about intuition and the world within us, I came back to the Icelandic word InnSæi. And when you look it up in the dictionary, you're going to find a very similar definition as you would find in the English dictionary for intuition. But when we started to delve into the word, when we did the documentary film, InnSæi, The Power of Intuition, shown worldwide on Netflix in 2016 and 17, then we kind of looked at the word and thought so there's so much wisdom in the Icelandic word. It holds space for so many different ways of defining intuition, from poetry, science to practice. And the way that we started to open up the word is to look at it. It's combined of in and sæi. In means inside or into, and sæi means to see or the sea. It's beautiful, right? And so we opened it up in a threefold meaning, which captures the way I work with intuition today. So the first one is the sea within, and that refers to the ever-flowing unconscious mind, the unconscious world within us, which is a world beyond, words. It's a world that holds space for imagination and sensing, sense-making, connecting dots. And if you put the sea within into silos or boxes, it ceases to flow. So it already tells us a lot about the logic of intuition. The second meaning of InnSæi is to see within. And that has to do with self-awareness, metacognition, our ability to see inside ourselves, to know ourselves well enough to be able to put ourselves into other people's shoes, but also to be able, and this is very important, also to be able to hone intuition. So to be able to discern intuition from biases, fears, and wishful thinking. And then the third meaning of InnSæi is to see from the inside out, and that means to navigate the ocean of life or today's uncertainty with a strong inner compass.
What I love about that is I think in my research and experiencing and experimenting with it's been kind of one-dimensional, very rich, but one-dimensional. And by you breaking it up into these kind of three aspects of, you kind of get us to first explore inside and get a kind of a foundation for that, and then build on it, which I found to be just a fresh perspective Some of the tools that you had, I was familiar with, but not all of them. So a little bit later on, I'd love to talk about some of those tools that you encourage people to use. Since this podcast is about thought echoes, and I think of intuition as having a quiet whisper of a voice that sometimes we don't pay attention to. And so, can you speak to how you see intuition kind of echoing through time? We may listen to it or not listen to it, but how do you see our intuition interacting with our thoughts?
Yeah, I love that question and the echoing. So, first of all, I'm one of those people and experts who make a difference between intuition and instinct. So instinct is something that is wired into our DNA. It's the reason why our face deforms when we bite into a lemon or lime, because that used to be a life-threatening taste. But intuition is something that develops over time. And I think that's very important for us to know. That is something that we can be aware of. It develops over time. So, and before I go into that, I do want to say that I'm curious to know more about genetic research, like how do we inherit intuitions? That's something that I haven't delved into. I'm curious to know more. But let's stick to what we know. So intuition develops over time. It is informed by how we immerse ourselves in the world that we live in. So most of the things that we go through every minute of every day are unconscious to us. So we pick up a lot of sensory data and information throughout every single hour of every day. We do this mostly unconsciously, but it still defines and informs our intuitions, perceptions, thoughts, and actions. So it still affects how we show up. So as we go through the day, and especially in modern society, if we are feeling the weight and the speed of the flow of information and the rapid changes and the immense uncertainty, we become perhaps even more unaware of what are the things that are informing our intuition. So that's one thing. So that I think that's echoed through our everyday life, so we need to be aware of that. So that's what a lot of my work is all about. But when I was listening to your question, it also made me think about, because echo is like ripple effects, wow, 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 it kind of ripples through space and time. So it makes me think about our intuition is formed over time. What is it in our intuition today that we could reconsider because the environment around us has changed a lot? So that's even a question I want to kind of just throw up in the air for all of us to think about, because we change as the world changes, and the better tuned we are into ourselves and the world around us, the better able we are to navigate, to be like fish in water, to be more resilient, and to really adapt and adjust and digest all the time. So so these are the thoughts that come to my mind. And maybe just to kind of add the third point to that, and that is, I've just described something that is very fluid and very busy and with lots of information in it. I think what it comes down to is about being like doing the work, doing the practice, doing the being of being aligned with your intuition as we go through every minute, hour, and day is really super important to us, because if we don't do that, then we become unaware of how we are being directed. We become much more easily drained, tired, disconnected, not only from ourselves and our bodies, but also other people and the world around us. And that causes loneliness, lack of belonging, and just lack of direction and sense of purpose.
When I came up with the concept of thought echoes, it came to me in a meditation after a meditation session, and it just resonated. It was after I had had a series of strokes and was talking about all I learned, or trying to encapsulate all I'd learned about myself, where after the strokes or when they were happening, I was not able to get my words out to communicate. In my
Wow.
head, I was having all these conversations, but they weren't coming out. So there was a disconnect. And so, but I felt like I was the same person. The essence of me was the same. It was just the mechanics had kind of broken down. And the positive affirmations and the persistence in terms of getting better, a lot of it was starting in terms of the thoughts that I placed on myself, but I knew that they kind of echoed out, and there were thoughts that I had previously that were a lot of stressful thoughts that had contributed. So there was this ripple effect, but it was kind of through time. It was the past ripple effect of what I had done that was catching up to me. And then it was what I was going to do with that, what was I going to send out going forward? And so it's just been a very rich metaphor in terms of how we interact with the non-rational, or how the balance between the rational and the intuitive side. And so that's always been kind of a fascination for me. In the ripple effect, in terms of the entanglement, when you talk about the three categories, so being able to see from the inside out in terms of how we interact with other people, can you talk about this is a good point to talk about some of the tools that you encourage people to do in terms of taking a beat and the attention journal? I will say, it is hard to write down where your attention is going because it flits all over the place. So it's been an interesting exercise because I journal all the time, but in doing the attention journal, it's got a slightly different purpose.
Right. Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about some of the tools or suggestions you have for people in tapping in?
Absolutely. So you've just mentioned lots of interesting and important things like rational thinking versus intuition, and I do talk about, just to start there, I do talk about that in my book, and I want to make the point for our listeners to say that it isn't always an either or when it comes to intuition. And I think that's important for us to start to think about and tune into in ourselves. So as I see it, intuition is very fundamental to our intelligence. And so in order to reason well, we need good intuition. And if we think about creativity or innovation or solving problems, we need intuition to do those things. So the weaving together of analysis and intuition, of rational thinking and creativity or intuition is always happening. And that's part of the flow. And so one of the things that I recommend in my book it's the attention journaling. But before we go to that, I want to talk a little bit about what I call harnessing the two rhythms in order to have a sharper inner compass. So the two rhythms is a methodology that I developed in actually a university education program that I created many years ago. It's very powerful. So it's all about mental agility, but in simple terms, it's about finding the balance in our day-to-day life. And I encourage people to try this out today or tomorrow or around this episode, to find the balance between the two rhythms of being and doing, being deliberate and being receptive, having a plan, being open to the unexpected, being analytical, being intuitive, speaking, listening, resting, being very active and executing, so these two rhythms. Another way to explain these two rhythms is to say, find a balance between your parasympathetic system and your sympathetic system. If these words are foreign to people, then I bear with me because they're very important in today's world. So most of us are very stressed, wired up. Our nervous system is under a lot of pressure, and a lot of us spend way too much time in fight or flight mode, which is the sympathetic system, and we should be spending way more time in our parasympathetic system, which is release and receive, and to be in the flow. When we are balanced between these two rhythms, and I would say, like, really, for stressed people, aim to be 80% in your parasympathetic system. So that's like, keep both feet on the ground, be grounded, be mindful, accompany yourself through the day. Don't go ahead of yourself, be in your body, be fully present in moments. They won't take the moments away from you. It's the contrary. You will be a better listener. You will be more creative. You will be more pleasant to be around. You will be more prepared for the unexpected, all these things. So Think about the two rhythms, how you can harness them to have a sharper inner compass, and things will unfold with more ease. So one of the things that I recommend that people do, and now we come to the attention journaling. It's going to sound simple, but trust me, it's truly powerful. The recipe is, so we pay attention to so many things throughout every given day. We know this. Our attention is a very scarce resource. And it's very highly sought after in the marketplace, politics, media, everywhere. We know this. So my recipe for us is, how about we pay attention to what it is that we pay attention to, and we document it in a journal. So physically write it down, what you pay attention to. This can be like, so it's not like a regular diary. It's not about, I woke up in the morning, it was sun, I had a toast. It's not that. Your attention is picking up things. It's like a photo shoot, So you're like, nice smile, write that down. Colorful flags. If you notice colorful flags, write it down. It's not yours to judge. Just let it onto the piece of paper. Tense energy. Nice bicycle. What do we pay attention to? Help me out here. Black table. I notice things and I grab them and I put them down on a piece of paper. I don't think logically about why I'm doing this. I don't judge it. I just allow it to come. And sometimes we notice things that we're not proud of. Mm-hmm. I've had that often. I feel like am I a bad person? Or and I'm giving ourselves permission to just let go of these thoughts and just put down on a piece of paper what it is that you notice. And this is the way of harnessing your attention and paying attention to what it is that you pay attention to, because what your attention is picking up is informing your perceptions, your intuition, your thoughts, and your actions. And it's helping you understand how you go with your intuition through every day. So for example, when you do this repeatedly day after day, you will start to notice, like if you read over your journal 7 days back, let's say, and you notice like, why was I noticing a rusty rooftop and a grumpy woman somewhere or a boring guy somewhere else on that day? Oh yes, it was because I had the coincidence in the morning and it really affected me badly, or I didn't sleep, or I was just grumpy myself. We go through days like that. And then on another day, we notice the sun is shining. There's this beautiful gesture that I just witnessed, and the flowers are amazing, all these different things. So we go through these waves. And the more that we tune into them and understand them, they are speaking to us. Our attention is showing us how fit we are on that day, how connected we are to our emotions. Because one of the things that we learn when we learn to hone and harness our intuition is that we shouldn't be relying on our intuition when we feel emotionally imbalanced. So, for example, I'm like, if you feel very angry, anxious, or even if you've just absolutely fallen in love, that's not the time to consult with your intuition, because it means that we have a saying, I think, in many cultures, maybe you should sleep on it. So try to learn when you are when your system is regulated, when you are fairly balanced. Try to learn, like tune into those parts of you so that you know when to consult with your intuition, because you alone can be the expert in your intuition. We all have intuition, but it's absolutely up to ourselves to tune into it.
That's I would have, if asked on a multiple choice test, I would have thought, when you were in a stressful situation, when you were needing to make a quick decision, that going with your gut or intuition would be proved to be better. And so what I'm hearing is that being able to recognize when you're grounded, so that you can you're in balance between the two. And so that receptive, the being and doing, that when you know what that feels like, and each of us will have a different way that presents itself to us, that's a time when you can have full confidence in that. So that's very interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, maybe just to kind of build on that, because we will all experience times of high pressure and stress, and whether we are alone on the top of a mountain and there's no GPS sign, we are at work, there is nobody to ask questions, we don't have any time to data analyze or whatever. We all experience these moments, and then that is the moment to just take a pause. It can be just a couple of seconds. If you've done the work and you know what your place is inside your body, because intuition is an embodied intelligence. If you know when you can be as most grounded as you possibly can in that moment, and breathing is a very accessible way. Sometimes yawning helps us if we really have no time, because even the most trained meditators will not have the ease or the calmness to meditate in a moment like that. So try to yawn, because, and my friend Dr. Rebecca Granger Ellis has pointed this out, and I just love this story. You know how kids sometimes yawn when they've been crying, and it's just, oh, blah, 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 you know, and it's a way just for the body and the nervous system to regulate.
Hmm.
Find a way to regulate your nervous system, because in every crisis, we have the opportunities to take a deep breath or totally flip over and panic and everything in between.
When there was a chapter that started out with the vagus nerve, and I'm aware of the vagus nerve and the connection, all of that, but I don't remember ever reading what it meant, which is wandering. So when I sat down to do my meditation the day after that, I read that, and it's just, my head was all over the place. It's like, oh yeah, I've got all that wandering energy that's going throughout my body. So it was it was a fun kind of, visual to go with the trying to calm that wandering energy. I mean, let it do its thing a little bit, but then try to, calm it down a little bit.
But what you're describing now as well is to have a little bit of sense of humor about how we are. I mean, we're human beings, we're totally imperfect, and we often do smart, brilliant, wonderful things, but we are never perfect. So it's good to have a sense of humor. And I actually do mention it in my book. It's one of the core things that we need in order to be resilient.
Yes. You have there's a suggestion for 5 rituals.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that or explore that a little more?
Yes. So I'm going to have to revise the 5 rituals. So one of them is definitely the attention journaling. So pay attention to what you pay attention, and document it. And I do give a few like lists of things to bear in mind as the days progress and you've been attention journaling. So when you look over it, you can underline things that describe emotional state. You can also, you will start to notice thoughts that are helpful for you, because, we think like thousands of thoughts per hour, but we don't notice the thoughts we're thinking. But when we start to attention journaling, then we do start to notice the thoughts that keep coming up again and again. And I should add to this that two of the 5 rituals, the other one is stream of consciousness journaling, which Julia Cameron calls the morning pages. It's inspired by that. And so stream of consciousness journaling is, you can do it in the morning or the evening. And that combined with attention journaling helps you really document and see on a piece of paper. First of all, you dump your thoughts on a piece of paper, and it creates more space in your mind. That's important because we have a lot of things swirling around in our heads. Another thing is, when you go through the attention journaling and you can mix these things together, you go 7 days, for example, back in time. And as I said before, you notice things that keep coming up again and again. Some of the thoughts are helpful. You want to stick to them and build on them. But some of the thoughts are not very helpful. So some of the thoughts that you think are very undermining for you, they are like the hard critic that we all have in our minds. And sometimes when we read over the words that we've written, we notice that there's a voice behind the thoughts that we're thinking. And it's time for us to sit and reflect and think about, whose voice is it? Is it mine? Is it an old teacher? Is it a friend? Is it a family member? That's a hard work to go through. That's my experience. It's not an easy work, because we can love people who are in our lives, but they may have said something once, only once, and it keeps coming back again and again and again. So these are things that journaling really helps us do. And then we will notice ideas that keep coming up again and again. And we may look at them and think, oh, actually, this is maybe something I want to do. I've been thinking about this obviously for much longer than I thought, or much more than I thought. Then we notice there's a jealous voice on our pages. We're like, who is that? And we all experience moments like that. So when we're jealous at somebody or something, then always good to be humorous about it a little bit if we can. And it is very likely that we are writing about something that we want to be doing ourselves. So let's take responsibility for that and explore what we can do with that. Another thing that I recommend in my book is for people to take time for themselves. I've had, in the past, I had many students doing different types of work. They had families maybe, or they had just many things they needed to do for other people, and they needed to show up in different places. Then I would always recommend to them, and I said, you have my permission to say to lie to your family or friends and just say that you're meeting me or something. Say that you have to go to school, but take half an hour or an hour, even more if you can, and do something that nourishes your spirit. Because the fact is, our days are so incredibly packed, and it's very common for people, let's say young parents, if they get half an hour or an hour off, they will think like, okay, we need to wash the car, we need to put things, I need to go to the bank, I need to do this or that. Just use that time for yourself as often as you can. I think that is super important. So the 5 rituals are daily journaling, which is the stream of consciousness journaling. It is this practice of minding the inflow to improve the outflow. So, it's about detoxing our minds and just being fully aware of what it is that we pay attention to. Because our attention is the key to our intuition, And so when our senses and our attention is totally full, the 5th one is broaden your horizon through grounding. So it really is about grounding yourself in the here and now. It is about being fully present in the here and now. And the word grounding takes it to a slightly different place. So it's really like there's a grounding exercise, a meditation that I offer in my book to really guide people in a few steps how to do a grounding exercise. So with both feet on the floor, and to understand that the earth is holding us. Just like trees are interconnected below the surface of the earth, so are we interconnected through our consciousness. So we co-regulate as a species through our nervous systems and cells. And, some people are so empathetic, they can really tune into how other people are feeling, all these different things. And which I know we don't have time to talk about, but we are very, very interconnected as human beings. And way more than we often realize. Broadening our horizons through grounding is also about, as I said earlier, being present. So when we are fully present in the moment, and so what I'm about to say is super important, and for the listener. So when you are fully present in the moment, you are best able to tune into your intuition and build on all the knowledge and expertise and experience that you've accumulated throughout your life. If you're not fully present, it means that your system is not as regulated as it could be. And it's more easier to panic. It's more easier to jump to a conclusion that is misintuition, like you jump to biases or fears or whatever. So being present in the moment is super important. And the reason why I say broaden your horizon through grounding is because when we are fully present, when our systems are regulated, when we are aligned with our intuition, we have the broadest view we can have when it comes to our brains. Our brain is not made to think first and foremost, like we tend to talk about. Our brain is first and foremost meant to make sure that we survive and our organs are working properly as they should, that we take one step after the other. If our system is under a lot of strain for a long time, the brain is like working really hard to make everything work out, and it doesn't have time to broaden our horizons and become deep listeners. And when we're super anxious or stressed, it is physically more hard for us to be empathetic, for example. So creative thinking, harnessing our intuition, our fullest potential and intelligence has very much to do with being able to regulate our whole system, which is the body.
You had again, some of what you wrote, it was reinforcing what I knew, but there were some surprises. One of the surprises was about listening to your skin.
Yes.
Of its being the largest organ, which makes total sense. And some of the, some of the things were obvious, like, you get goosebumps or you whatever, but I've really been trying to just use my skin as a filter going through the day. And it's very interesting. I think I'm still like, well, I don't feel anything on your skin. It's like, well, just slow down a little bit and see what you feel on your skin. So can you tell me how that came to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and that is actually something super important that I forgot to mention when I talk about pay attention to what you pay attention to. And because, like you were referring to, intuition is an embodied intelligence. Like most of the things that we experience throughout a single day is unconscious to us, which really underlines the importance of paying attention with our whole body. So I offer sort of like a body scan in my book. I talk about the vagus nerve and the heart, what that does, and the lungs, and obviously we know more about the eyes and ears and when we touch things. But the skin, like you say, is the biggest organ of the body. So next time, when you feel chills down your spine, when you get goosebumps, wonder why you're getting goosebumps, and why do you get chills down your spine? Or why all of a sudden does a part of your skin feel super warm? Some people will describe to me, when I know something's right, I just know it with my intuition. I feel this warmth over my chest.
Mm.
You're in the theater, you're out on the street, or you're wherever. Somebody says something that moves you and you get goosebumps. If you notice you get goosebumps, but you don't pay attention to the goosebumps. But if you do next time, then just acknowledge that something just passed, something just happened that deeply moved you. Why did it deeply move you? Do you want to thank somebody for giving that to you, for gifting that for you? Do you want to think about what are the things that move you and warm your heart and make you happy? If you get chills down your spine, is that something about the energy in the room? Is there a person that gives you that feeling? If that's the case, then you might want to know what happens next time you meet that person and the next time. And you might be trying to tell yourself something about how you are experiencing the relationship with that person. Because, a lot of us go through the day disconnected from ourselves and experiences like that. And it's very understandable. It actually takes a lot of discipline to tune into your body and intuition. And I think that's what we need to recognize and be kind to ourselves when it comes to those things. I know how it is to be disconnected. And it hasn't just happened once in my life. It's happened more than once. I also know how it is to feel more or less like a zombie, the shadow of yourself. So all these things. So yeah.
One of the I can't remember the gentleman that you talked about, but it was about the clarity stack. And I remember reading it where we all have so many things, or most people have so many things they want to do in their busy schedules and whatnot. And he had a phrase, it was like an avalanche of opportunity that comes his way. And I want to try that, or that's a good idea, or you're kind of drawn to all of them. So in having this clarity stack, which kind of, and it's a longer conversation in terms of your whys, but can you talk about a little bit about that clarity stack as a way to help inform you for where you're going to be spending your attention?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to approach this in a simpler way than described in the book. because of time, but clarity stack is to some extent about intention. Ask yourself why you're doing what you're doing, why are you doing it? And make sure your purpose is very clear. So that when you go, like Mark Pollock, who is this amazing explorer, leader, person that I interview in my book. He's the first blind man to cross the South Pole. He later becomes paralyzed and commits his life to finding cure for paralysis in our lifetime. He's a leadership coach and a speaker. I just highly recommend people watch his film or look him up on the internet. So he creates a clarity stack for him, and he thinks about his life like he does in the Olympic routines, So it's like he plans a year, he plans 2 years, 3 years, and 4 years. And as his compass, part of his inner compass, I guess, but it's more like a strategic compass, is why am I doing what I'm doing? What do I need to do? What do I want to do? And so he uses that as a filter to say yes and no to things. So, for example, the things that we are asked to do or offered to do, some of them are truly very exciting. We want to be everywhere at the same time. And he will always compare that to his intention. Does that fit into my intention of delivering this and this and that in a week's time, in a month's time, in a year's time? So it helps him discern. Intuition as an inner compass really helps us discern what we want to be doing, what's important that we do, and also understand what are the things we might want to let go of and feel good about it. There's another thing that he, in his clarity stack, which I think is super important, and that is focus on the things that you're doing, set the timer to 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. Work as you can in a state of flow. A state of flow is when your intuition is fully integrated into all your intellectual faculties, and you are providing the greatest form of attention that humans can offer to a certain task. If you only do that for an hour or two, whatever you have, then you will be much more productive than you are when you're checking your phone every 10 minutes or every 5 minutes or answering phone calls or whatever. Sometimes I do this with 20 minutes. If it's a very hectic day, I'm working with a team or something, it's, we all have that too. So, but just to say, like, I'm going to be doing this for 20 minutes, or just turn off the phone for 20 minutes, whatever you can, just focus on one thing at a time. We're not made to focus on many things at the same time. So, sometimes we're doing deep work, sometimes we're doing admin work. It depends on the task. But yeah, the chapter with the 2 rhythms and Mark Pollock is a very practical one for those who want to really learn how to build that into their daily routine.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And I think recently I've been using in 30-minute chunks and then do something for 5 minutes. And I find myself going, well, I'm just going to, the 30 minutes is done, but I'm just going to finish what I'm doing. And then another 20 minutes has gone by. So it's like, no, when you're done, like finish the sentence, but get up and walk, around for 5 minutes. I find that helpful. And if I do those for chunks during my productive time, which is usually in the morning, then I feel freer in the afternoon to do other things because I attended to it. And it gives my brain kind of a chance to take a break because it worked hard. Taking time to just sit there and be present and not go off planning for the day is hard. So I have to just kind of gently, it's like meditation, where you gently come back to thinking about your breath or whatever. It's the same thing with me at the end of the day. It's like you worked really hard today. Give yourself 15 minutes before you shift into the night rather than kind of roll in with your to-do list still kind of taped to your hands. And that I find to be hard but rewarding when I take the time to do that. So thank you for the reminders of taking that time.
Yeah, and just to honor what you just said. So when you try these things, first of all, when you become more aware of how you spend your time, how you spend your energy and attention. And when you notice the effects of doing X and Y, when you notice that it's better for you, you sleep better if you don't do something in the evening just before bed. This is really part of what we mean by self-awareness as the first steps to learning to hone our intuition. It's really, we are going to be on our own team when we decide to do that. It's super important. It's only good for us. It's only good for us. And sometimes we just, you know, just what I find myself saying a lot is like, it's not so hard. You know, it's not like we have to take an hour aside or 10 hours aside. It's like, it's just part of how you navigate through the day.
And I often, when I'm trying to do something new, I'll remember back to exercise, and it's like you get all excited. So I'm going to do cardio 3 times a week, and I'm going to do, you know, resistance training twice a week. And then comes your day off, and it's like, well, no, I'd like to go run again. And it's like, no, there's a reason that you take a break. It's good for your body to take a break. And so using that same advice when it comes to my brain, you know, in terms of whatever I'm doing that's taxing, that takes a lot of brain cycles to do, it's good to have a break, just like exercise with
Yeah, exactly. And like Mark Pollock also talks about in the book, you know, as an extreme athlete that he's been in his previous years, you know, there's a reason why sports people take time to relax before a competition. And the same applies to all of us. So like, you know, many of us go through the day and the week and we think we don't deserve to take time off and go to meet friends and laugh, or go to a stand-up thing, or to the cinema or theater, or just relax, watch a film in the evening, or read a book. But there's a reason why this is like, what happens when we do that is that we are filling the tank again. You know, we're filling the body battery. You know, we're filling our spirits again. And it's just as important as it is to pour out what we know and how we can implement and how we can organize. So another way to say this is like, we need to be careful not to burn our candles on both ends. And we need to just remember that some people are like true givers. They give a lot of themselves. They do caregiving. That's part of their work or their character. They need to be specially attuned to the importance of doing things that nourish them so that they can fill their tank. Some people just feel very drained after having been around a lot of people or few people during a day. Then they will know they need solitude in order to recharge their batteries again. You know, this is all about self-awareness, metacognition, and learning how to keep your system regulated and be aligned with your intuition.
For people who are new to the concept or are looking for ways to kind of approach the Icelandic way to do it, what would be your words of wisdom for where to get started?
So, you know, the Icelandic part of my book and the work that I do is first and foremost the word. You know, there is no such thing as a tradition in Iceland to practice your intuition. It's not an Icelandic philosophy, or the word is really wise, and we discovered that it holds space for the newest things we know in science, as well as the poetic and philosophical meaning of intuition and the ancient wisdom. But what I would say is the most Icelandic thing, which just comes very natural to me as the author of InnSæi, is to describe the world within us through the natural forces. Because, you know, we are part of nature and nature is part of us. And there is so much that we can learn about how the ebb and flow of what it means to be human, you know, and how our system kind of works. There's so much we can learn from nature in that. So, you know, one of the things, when people feel really stuck and stagnated, like really stuck inside, they're like very rigid mind. They find it hard to change their opinions, or they're in a loop. They're thinking the same thing over and over again. One of the most wonderful ways that we can unlock that in the spirit of InnSæi is to put things into motion. So think about water, you know, put your hands under the tap and let the water run and watch it run over your fingers. It's moving all the time. We live in a world that's constantly changing. It's like being in a river. So the moment you look at something in the river, it's gone. It's moved onwards. That's how life is. So when we feel rigid and stuck and stagnated, we're not moving along with things. So physically, we can start to allow things to move and unfold and melt. I take an example of a glacier in the book. You know, when we have pain, we often store pain inside our bodies and it gets cluttered up and like it's like we have these stones inside our bodies and they start to create something that's painful in joints or whatever. And sometimes it's emotionally connected, like we now know through recent research. So think about it like a glacier. Glacier is something that's frozen, but when you cry, open up, put your emotions in. Emotion is about putting things into motion, you know, showing your emotions, talking about them, allowing them to go out of your body into the air, you know, out of your system, then it's like a glacier that's melting away. And there is this lyric that I referred to in my book from John Grant, the musician, and it's about how you allow the glacier inside you to melt away. And it will leave beautiful landscape with minerals and different stuff, as he says, which changes your inner landscape in who you are, but allows you to grow through it. And you are transformed by it. And which means that you go through difficult times in your life and you learn and you grow through them instead of being stuck and not moving them. So this is something that I guess when I look back on my book now is this is just what Icelandic nature has taught me. It's like you are always being reminded that you are part of the natural forces. You know, we have volcanic eruptions and we have incredible weather and crazy storms and wind and, you know, horizontal rain and what have you. It's probably nearly half of it, or, you know, there's so little that we can control as humans. So being like fish in water is something that I would definitely encourage people to think about. How can you be like fish in water instead of a fish on dry land or swimming against the stream?
Those are great metaphors, especially the glacier. I love with the minerals that are left behind. That's beautiful. Can you tell us about the book is when the podcast is live, the book is coming out the same week. So can you talk about what you're doing with finishing up that project or what your next project is going to be?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So my book is coming out in North America, as you say, on the 6th of May. It's coming out in all continents in the world in 12 languages, I think. Yes.
That's
It's
wonderful.
already been out in, I think it's 6 languages so far. So it's truly exciting. So I feel like I'm in the middle of the process. But what I do want to share with you is that I will be offering courses, training people to align with and honing their intuition through the lens of the Icelandic concept InnSæi. And I'm super excited about that. And that is something that we are working on really hard right now. Yeah, I give talks and I also coach, but that is kind of the most kind of broad-based project that I'll be focusing on in the coming months and years.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. And a way to multiply your exposure for people, because you can't be in, every place that you might like to be in terms of coaching.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's really what I find myself wanting to do in many of my projects. I want to be able to reach many. And I think that once people have aligned with their intuition and they can feel it in their body and mind, what that feels like, it's very hard to unknow that.
Yeah. No,
You know.
thank you so much for taking the time. And my attention journaling, I'm about a week in, so I'm
Oh,
going to
brilliant.
continue to do that, and we'll see what patterns that I find after I go back and do my color coding. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, likewise, thank you so much, Beth. It's been such an honor to get to know you and just also listening to your podcasts.
Thank you.
I really enjoy them.
Okay, well, have a gentle downtime because it's the end of your day and I'm just getting started. So I'm going to be present all day and you're going to try to wind down.
Oh, thank you. I love that.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode of the Thought Echoes podcast, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing with a friend. It helps get the word out. Until next time, keep exploring the echoes that shape your world.